Okay, so today I'll be reacting to Season 1, Episode 1 of 30 Coins. I don't know anything about it. I think I saw Paul Giamatti on the cover there, but I just chose this totally at random just from the horror section on HBO Max. The one horror series I wanted to do was like American Horror Story, that I've heard that's pretty good, and it might be like an anthology series. That's generally what I would consider to be the best way to do a horror series, where like the episodes don't really relate to each other, there's no story. And it's just like one self-contained story after another. Alfred Hitchcock Presents or Twilight Zone. Not that those were always horror, but that's a good way to do it. At least I like those. But I watched last time for my horror series, I've been sort of doing this alternating format, where on one day I do a main series, so that's been The Sopranos, but then on the next day I do one of four things. I do either a comedy 1 or a comedy 2 or a horror 1 or horror 2. Now what do those 1 and 2 mean? It means this is quite the layers of formats, but basically we started off, we did the Big Bang Theory, and the format was for the comedy slot 1. What we did with that was I'll watch it until an episode fails to make me laugh. So episode 2 failed to make me laugh, so I stopped. Then I switched over to horror 1, which horror 1 is going to be watching until an episode fails to... Wait. Is that what it was? I'm getting confused by my own thing. Yeah. Watching a horror series until an episode fails to scare me. And so the first episode failed to scare me. Right? That was... and it was actually boring as hell, too. I hated that. It might be a good show, but Lovecraft Country. It was a terrible first episode. It was slow. It was boring. It was like just nothing interesting happened until like the end, and it was only a little bit. So then you end up with, okay, so that first section was watch a comedy till it fails to make you laugh for a whole episode, then watch a horror show till it fails to scare you for a whole episode. Then, after that, I move on to back to comedy 2, and then that was watch until I laugh, period. So if it makes me laugh once, then I stop watching. So it's kind of an inverse format. So I watched Larry David, Curb Your Enthusiasm for 1999, not the actual one that came after that, the full series. So it was just like a single episode thing, like where they're just introducing the format of it or something, like as an HBO special. And it actually did make me laugh unexpectedly to like some guy talking about his heart exploded. And like, it's a hilarious... You wouldn't expect it. I don't know how much it's even meant to be funny, but the way he said that, like, oh, she fucked 2 people to death and his heart exploded, and he's saying it with such glee and he's so happy about it. Whoever that actor is did an amazing job with that line. If it's even meant to be funny, maybe it's not meant to be funny, and whatever, but it wasn't a particularly funny episode or whatever it was. A lot of it was like documentary style stuff, maybe like how The Office does it. But I'm literally dying like at that line, so I have to count that. When I first heard it, I didn't laugh too much, but then I watched it again to give it a second chance. Just like, okay, should that count as a laugh? Because I kind of laughed, but then the fact that it made me laugh, it's even making me laugh now. But it's kind of for a stupid reason, but whatever. So yeah, that's the inverse format. So we watch that until it makes me laugh, period. At any point, then I just stop there. Not only the episode, but even whatever part of the episode, we just stop right there. So this series will be the same thing, except for horror. I'll watch a horror series, in this case 30 Coins, until I get scared. If I get scared once, it's over. So it's kind of like, the second slot is try not to laugh challenge, period. And it's like try not to get scared challenge. So if I get scared, I stop watching the series, it's over. If I laugh, I stop watching, it's over. That was with the, obviously, Curb Your Enthusiasm. And then the first slot is, obviously, watch until a whole episode fails to make me laugh, or fails to scare me, which of course they both did, or I guess that did in the pilot, Big Bang Theory. And I've never seen any of these, period, so it's not like I'm rewatching them, I'm watching them for the first time. But I like doing sort of these fun and interesting formats. So just to qualify it, this one's kind of a little bit unfair, because I'm trying to go out of my way maybe not to laugh or not to get scared, although maybe not either. If it earns it, it earns it. But it's also like I'm punishing the series. Like, oh, it's good, it's funny, so therefore I stop watching. So it's not holding anything against the series. It's not a bad thing if it makes me laugh or if it scares me. It's actually a good thing. But it's just to put that sort of pressure. And like I always say, I'm considered to be somebody who's desensitized because I used to review movies and I've seen so many. So it's like I've seen it all. So nothing really makes me laugh. Nothing really, or even without that, like I'm just like that naturally. Like, because I know it's not real, why would I be scared of it? But it could happen still. And of course, in this format, in this style, the fact of the matter is that you get to, I can't really see it as much, I mean, I can see it out of the corner of my eye, but of course I do these while driving too. So I'm kind of more listening than I am watching. So for the sake of horror, that could be a little bit difficult to manage as well, like where it's a little bit, it can be a little bit difficult to manage that because it's almost unfair, but yeah, well, so basically the point is we'll rotate between those. So like today is the horror, that's what I'll call it for now, I'll give it the slot number because it's too confusing otherwise. This is the horror 2 slot where again it's watch until you get scared, and then tomorrow will be my normal main series, so Sopranos episode whatever we're on 8, and then the day after that we'll be either continuing this because it hasn't scared us yet, so we keep watching until then, or if we do get scared during this episode for whatever reason, then we'll go back to comedy slot 1, where now we'll watch until an episode fails to make me laugh of some other comedy. So this is a great way for me to get a chance to watch a whole bunch of series that I haven't seen, and the first format seems more fair because you're sort of rewarding it, right? We watch until it fails to scare me, so if it's scaring me, then it earns its keep, or we watch until it fails to make me laugh, so I laughed in episode 1 of The Big Bang Theory towards the beginning. Sheldon was pretty funny, so I'm at least a Sheldon fan based on those 2 episodes alone, but everything else about the show was kind of droll. The girl is too stupid, Penny, the guys are too nerdy, like, that is the show. It's one joke. Haha, nerds are funny, these guys are nerds, wow, funny. That's it, like, there's nothing else to it, there's no contrast to it. I guess you could say she is the contrast to it, but still doesn't work too well. Now, this episode is super long, so I won't obviously be able to watch it in this segment. I'll do it next time as well then, either way, right? So, and it won't matter because it's like I'm watching it just period until I get scared, so it doesn't matter on an episode basis. But this is like an hour and a half long almost. I imagine that's just because it's the first episode, not because every episode is going to be like that. And we could also do movies in this format, I guess. But I don't like splitting it up that much because I don't have to do it like over 4 segments or something, which will be like 8 days because it's like, you know what I mean? Because I do it every other day anyway. And then also on top of that, I would like to do a format with that too. So it's like, I guess you could watch a horror movie until it scares you. So if I get scared during it at any point, then I stop. Or you watch like the whole series. Watch a series of movies until something happens. So like, I was even joking about that, like watch something erotic until you get aroused. Like watch a romance or something to do with that until you get aroused challenge. But no, like you watch Scream 1 and if it scares you then you watch the next one, or if it doesn't then you stop there, right? Something like that. So you watch all the sequels until one of them fails to scare you or something like that. So I could still do a similar one to that. But for now, these series are okay, I guess. My thing fell off, so I have to figure it out. But yeah, I think that's been the biggest challenge of this is the fucking phone keeps falling off the air vent because it's not meant to be done at this horizontal angle, or maybe just in general. It's just, I got another one too, and these are all kind of cheap and shitty. Like there, it is just falling off again. Maybe I just won't do it this time. I don't know, or maybe I'll go to Walmart and actually get something to do this, but then I won't, whatever, this will be a super long intro. But no, that one left sort of a bad taste in my mouth. That stupid ass one called, what do you call it? The Lovecraft Country. I could have done like a try not to fall asleep challenge. It wasn't just not a scary episode, forget about that aspect, just like it was one of the most boring, shitty pilots you could possibly have for a series. It was just so bland. Like that gets like a D-. It was just garbage, right? I didn't like that at all. Like it kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth about these horror series. Maybe like I don't care so much about the story. I don't care so much about all that. Or if it's good, then fine. But I mean, you know what I mean? Like I'm not saying it has to be a jump scare every 5 seconds, but it was neither scary nor interesting nor anything. It was just garbage. Right, it was so meandering. There was nothing was happening. They tried to develop the characters a little bit, but like, I don't know. I just didn't take anything out of it. And it has like that Pulp Fiction. I always call it Pulp Fiction, but it's something else that I'm trying to say. Like this sort of small town vibe, like this kid who likes comic books, and now he gets to live out his own dream of being in one. So like this guy reads all these kind of horror stories or fantasy stories, and now he gets to actually live it out somehow. Right, it has that sort of, there's a term for it, it's something like that. Not Pulp Fiction, but it's like just lived in sort of, I don't know what it is, but basically the character gets to live out their fantasy of like this small, they live in a small town and they always imagine something exciting would happen, and they wanted something like this to happen, and then it finally does, and then whatever, they get to meet real monsters, or go out into space for real, or all these kind of other crazy things. So it was not a particularly interesting episode, and I would actually start watching this one here, but the problem is that I don't have the ability to actually do it because the phone stand won't actually stay out, which is really frustrating. And the main point of like when I go to edit and upload these too, that makes it easier for me, is I want it to just be where like I just edit it once and upload it, so there's no pauses. I don't pause the episode either. But sometimes I talk over it and people don't like that, whatever, but that's fine. It's more like, what about the simple fact that, I don't want to pause it, but then I have to because of this stupid ass thing of the stand that keeps falling down. Alright, so we'll just turn this into a long extended intro because my thing simply won't work, so I'll try to get another one, but it is unbelievably hard to get this thing to stay because you're putting it in the air vent, which normally that was working. In fact, I never had an issue with it before, with my other one. Then I got a new one, and now that's not working either. But it must be something to do with the horizontal thing. So imagine that. Officer, I only got in an accident because I was distracted because I'm doing React content with a headphone in one ear, and I'm talking to a fucking college mic recorder thing, and I'm distracted by all this combined, and my stupid-ass phone fell out of my stupid-ass air vent holder because this stupid-ass HBO Max doesn't let me put it vertically because it has this stupid-ass landscape requirement. So because of that very specific set of circumstances, it creates a very awkward and annoying thing. So we'll just kind of recap some of the stuff I've done here. Right, and maybe I'll do this one as a separate entry because I sometimes do those once in a while. Often because I either can't decide what to watch or because I can't get it to actually work for whatever reason. I think mainly it's just been because of this actually that the thing keeps falling out. I mean, I could just like listen to the episode, but I'm basically doing that anyway. I won't be able to like glance at it and stuff. I don't know what more I can do though. I'll have to get like some fancy fucking phone holder or something. I don't even remember when I got this one. Like where I got this from. Because the other one was a little better. We got to look for like a really good one, which Walmart might not even have. And I'm lucky I even have time to do this today, but no, this episode's way too fucking long, so maybe I won't even bother doing it. I'm just setting up to do it. No, but that'll fuck up my schedule, because tomorrow I want to do the Sopranos. I like doing that one in the morning, and then I like doing this one at night. Whatever this is, like a comedy or a horror. I prefer Sopranos in the morning, just somehow it's a little heavier, and just, well, it doesn't have to be necessarily, but it just kind of, it's a nice morning series. I don't know how else to explain it, whereas these are more like kind of just weird with the formats and everything behind them. So yeah, that was funny how I found that moment so funny and Curb Your Enthusiasm. Like if you were to look at like how many people have laughed to that particular moment, probably almost nobody would have, but just somehow it ends up being like that anyway, just because of the simple fact that whatever, it's like his sick sadistic fascination with it. Just to describe it that way too, they're having sex, this girl he's talking about and this old guy, and his heart exploded. He died and his heart exploded because they're having sex and he can't handle it, and then just he's saying it so happily, like it's the best thing that's ever happened to him. It's amazing. So it might be an inadvertent laugh, actually true, to be fair, but maybe that's just how I am too. Like I'll find something funny that nobody else finds funny, and then the things that they normally find funny, I won't find funny. But I am impressed and surprised that The Big Bang Theory was as popular as it was, because that would be my recurring complaint. And you can say that's true with a lot of other series too. Like, oh, there's just one joke, like Doug Heffernan and King of Queens is fat, and that's not the only joke, but it's like, yeah, Carrie's a bitch and Doug is fat. But the point is that whatever, there's more to these series than just that. Seinfeld, like, oh, you know, you have the strong characterizations, like George is eccentric and Kramer's weird and crazy and over the top and Jerry's all apathetic and Elaine's just a tomboy and weird. But like, the point is that it's not as though you're able to single something out as much as, oh, you know, like they're all just basically bad people almost, the characters in Seinfeld. That's how it ends too, on that note, like, oh, you know, they're all bad and they deserve to get punished for being so apathetic and horrible and killing the bubble boy and doing all these kind of things. Like, who would be the worst if I was to rate that? Kramer is sometimes actually pretty well-meaning. It's almost like he doesn't know better, or he doesn't do things usually with malicious intent, right? And then when people take things too far, he's the one to actually check them. So he's crazy and zany, but like, who would be like bad? George is kind of evil because Elaine does things with ill intent at times. She can be kind of spiteful, vindictive, a bit of a bitch, if you look at it that way. But George, like, kills fucking Susan because he's cheap with the stamps, but he's kind of happy about it. Like, that's his way to get out of it, sort of. That's, like, a really dark moment if you think about it. Like, how do we write this character out? Oh, we just kill her. That's it. Like, we'll kill her off in some stupid way with the stamps. Like, that's not funny. That's not a good comedic way to end it. And part of it was because they didn't like the actress, I guess, in real life, which, you know, she didn't do a bad job. She was supposed to be the normal one compared to them all being weird. So she was supposed to be like the straight woman, if you will. Like, everybody's doing something crazy and she's just normal. So the joke isn't about her. She's not supposed to be funny at all, right? Although some scenes she had were pretty funny. Like, she's laughing about the prenup. Like, sure, you know, I make more money than you do. So she's laughing about it. My friend sort of likened that to Giselle. Like, Tom Brady asked Giselle for a prenup and she's laughing at him like Susan because he's like, she made more money than he did in his career just as a model and whatnot. Giselle Bundchen, or however you say her name. So the point is that if you were to rank them, Kramer isn't too bad. Jerry can be really apathetic, but I feel like George is apathetic in a way that's actually harmful to a lot of people. He just seems like he ruined Susan's whole life. You know, they go back and forth with the relationship and just, I don't know, he seems the most likely to cause problems, which he does. It's not really his fault. No, it is his fault, but he didn't intend for that to happen. But then, see, he's happy that it happened and he's grateful that it's happened, so it's like very, very weird. Elaine has moments. I mean, I guess they're all bad, is my point, but yeah, what else do we have to recap on? The Sopranos has been pretty good, but they kind of keep overusing that stupid therapy gimmick that is like way too overdone, right? Like, I thought they would just start off the series with it, but then they kept doing it over and over and over. Every episode has like multiple therapy sessions. Like, how fucking much does he go to that place? You could say they're just cutting it up and showing it from the same session over the course of the episode, but it seems like he keeps going back, so you don't know how much time is elapsing, but it almost seems like, how could, in the event of a few days, he's going to a therapist like 5 times in like 3 days? I guess he has the money to be able to do it, but, you know, you would think, okay, once a week is good enough, bro. You don't need to fucking be doing this. That was a big clown moment for him. Like, he's falling in love with the therapist. Like, what the fuck are you doing, man? You're supposed to be this big, bad mafia boss. You can't handle being the boss, so you gotta let Junior do it for you. I finally discovered the song that was in those Scarface edits, though. That's the one that plays at the end of episode 6, season 1, episode 6 of Sopranos, where they're showing that Junior's the boss and the whole new sort of mob structure is basically the fact of it's like paparazzi by X bit something, and so yeah, that was always in those Scarface edits, like where he's talking about some of the one-liners. All I have in this world is my balls and my word, and I don't break them for nobody. So obviously, you know, it's not from Scarface, but I didn't know what it was from. So, and it's technically not from The Sopranos either, but they at least use it, and it kind of fits with that sort of mentality. So you almost associate it less with Tony Soprano than you do with Junior, right? Because it has to do with him getting promoted up the ranks and all this kind of stuff. So that's usually pretty much fine because you get to appreciate it that way. This is one of those things you could do, like where you basically say, like, oh, leave a recorder on all the time and just record your thoughts, like IRL streaming or something like that, right? It's 24/7. You're in the shower, leave it on, so in case you have a good idea. Leave it on when you're about to go to bed in case you have a good idea there. Leave it while you're driving, something like that. It's like this living vicariously, ongoing, the kind of stuff I would always mock, but this is the kind of stuff that people do now, right? It's not that crazy to react to something. In fact, I'm doing it more in long form, where I'm reacting to the whole thing. I'm just not showing it in video. But I mean, you could just watch it along if my timestamps were at least more accurate, because sometimes they get interrupted and whatever weird shit happens. But So yeah, I'll actually stop. Like, yeah, we're doing like a real life shopping stream. I'll use it even in Walmart and pretend like I'm talking on the phone and just say what I'm doing. Like, people care about this random shit, but this is the whole cult of personality and celebrity issue of the modern day. That kind of subverts any form of meritocracy. Like, you're not actually doing anything. It's like what it starts with is you have to do something very interesting or notable or impressive, and that's how you get people's attention. Like, you're an athlete, or you're doing something good, right? Objectively, that not everybody could do. So that's why people pay attention to you. But then once you do that, now they start caring about all the ordinary things in your life that anybody can do. Like, oh, look at him, he's eating breakfast, or oh, look at him, he's comedians in coffee, drinking in cars, drinking coffee, whatever, right? Like, now we get interested in all these little things that they do that are not notable on their own, so you're kind of cheating the process. You do something impressive at one point, but now people start caring about you as an individual. What you're doing is not impressive or held accountable. It's more like, oh, look at, we know who they are, so who they are becomes the emphasis. And that makes it so much easier for them to do it. They don't have to consistently be doing something impressive or hard to do that nobody else can do, right, that maybe made them famous in the first place. They just have to do anything, and people will just care about it just because, right? They know who they are. It's like an exposure fallacy, right? What makes you popular? Number one is exposure. Number two is familiarity. And number three, it's repetition. So if somebody gets exposed on the national stage for whatever reason, right, this is why sometimes negative attention is still good attention, because now they become aware of you, so that's all it takes. They have to become aware of you, not because you're doing anything good or impressive, just they hear about you, one. Then number two is they keep seeing you often, number two. And then number three is, they're just used to you, familiar with you. So that's all it takes, right? Now, you would assume they must be doing something good to make that happen, but sometimes it's not as noteworthy as what people make it out to be. And the people who are best at things in life are like, this applies to like chess, let's say. The people who are best at certain things in life are in a position where basically they would almost scoff at that. They want to focus on what they do, not on what they say or who they are. And so you'd say, well, the reason why this person's more popular is somebody who's better than what they do, right? Somebody who's better at something, but they're less popular than somebody who's just noteworthy for their personality. They could also do the same thing, like where they're just talking and being friendly and whatever, but they care more about actually being good, and they focus on that as a priority, whereas the other person doesn't care. So they'd almost be embarrassed. Like, why am I making such a big fuss over not being that good when they want to be the best? And that's actually what dictates their success, or that's what they believe in. So that would be the point. Right? I would rather die at the altar of meritocracy than live and be successful by by subverting it, basically, in spite of it. I wouldn't want that to be the case. So sure, I might be a clown and nobody knows or nobody cares or whatever. I've had some sort of followings and stuff in the past, but I would still want it to be based on something other than just, oh, look at me, I'm sitting here just reacting, look at my face cam, right? So at least this holds it accountable. Because you're not doing it with face cam, right, you can't hide behind that and say, oh, look at them, and they associate a face to the name and all this kind of stuff. No, now it becomes more about your commentary, and it actually has to be good, or you have to actually be saying or doing something of substance. Because if you're not doing that, then you're in a position where there's nothing else to fall back on, right? There's nothing else there to it. So you're not hiding behind that, right? But this is the kind of shit that people do. I need a face cam. I need a professional mic setup studio in my car so I can do this, like, influencer type shit. But I mean, this is the kind of stuff that people do and go for these days. But the real reason is just like, I'm in this mood to do this kind of thing anyway. So like, if I'm driving, so I may as well just watch a show because I haven't watched too many shows. And if I'm doing that, I may as well just sort of rekindle my review self from like with doing movies. I might actually start doing movies like this too, because whatever, it's just better than, that can give you more sense of finality to it. The problem is just breaking it up so much that I hate doing that, right? So over the course of 8 days, I'll watch 1 2-hour movie, or maybe 2 days in best case, just because but even then you'll take a break in between. I like the variety, at least, that this gives me, or that's why I'm doing the second slot so viciously, because you get to, or whatever, so creatively, because you get to basically, you get to basically rotate, and there's like a high risk of it ending. Like, oh, if this episode fails to make me laugh, then I move on to the next thing. So it doesn't mean I couldn't watch a whole show like this, but it would be very hard for it to do, right? Like, there was nothing in that Big Bang Theory episode 2 that made me laugh. So if Curb Your Enthusiasm had been that, we would have been on to episode 2, which there is no episode 2. We could watch the other series, I guess, but that was something else. There's like one from 1999 and then one from 2000, and the one from 2000 has gone on for 12 seasons, which that also doesn't make sense because it came out in 2000. So every other year they do a season, like in 24 years they've done 12 seasons, and it's saying like new episode and stuff like that. So how does that make sense? They must have taken a hiatus somewhere along the line there. But yeah, Larry David looked old even then, so how the fuck is he still doing it? And before he somehow is dead and I look like a clown, but, you know, and I just haven't heard about it. But no, I always defend him against that one, or defend Jerry against that one criticism, like, oh, you know, the real genius behind the show was Larry David and blah, blah, blah. Like, he was obviously very good and influential, but Jerry held the fort down for like the last couple seasons without Larry there, and those were still some of the most successful episodes in the show's history, and some of the most successful seasons. So it's not like, yeah, maybe they had some ideas lying around from before that they ended up using those, but that's the one weakness of series like that, even as good as Seinfeld is like, especially for the time, but they're sort of plug-in sort of stories. Like, any episode is sort of just interchangeable and random. There's very few ongoing story arcs, like some stuff to do with the retirement homes for the parents of Jerry, or some stuff to do with Susan, or some stuff to do with Elaine and Jerry getting back together and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's just random. Like, what crazy thing is Kramer up to today? So in other words, the way you would write that is you would just have like 100 different ideas and just plug it in at any interchangeable episode, right? It's not as important. Sometimes there's a little interest in their jobs and what they're doing at their job, but everything is very much just based on the characterizations. So it's kind of like you can just interchange different things, right? You know what the character is going to do, so that kind of writes itself. And then you also know generally what's going to happen is not accountable to some longer story situation, because you're kind of just like, you know, there's no context. It's just like, oh, random stuff is happening today. We're going to the mall. We're going shopping. We're having an issue with the cab driver. We're having an issue with at work. Like, it's just random stuff that you can just fill in. So that's what you might realize. Like, did you know that they wrote an episode for season 7 of Seinfeld actually in season 1, but they never got around to using that plot, so they just used it in season 7. And it doesn't matter, because unless it makes some other reference to the characters, like, oh, that Jerry and Elaine are back together or something like that, like they might have been in season 1 or whatever, then it wouldn't matter, because there's no accountability. It's just random stuff happening, and you can just do that. So that's kind of how police procedural stuff is, like another case, another crime, like it's just the same thing. They might have some overarching plot, like the Red John story or something like that, but ultimately, you know, a lot of the other details and encounters can be interchanged with each other over the course of a story. So the strong, most important part of the series is the characterization. Like, you have like a strong, interesting character to work with, and then, or a group of characters, and then everything else feeds off of that, even if it is just seemingly random and interchangeable plug-in type stuff.